What's going to happen when you die? Well, you're about to find out from one man who has died 3 times and was once clinically dead for 28 minutes after being struck by lightning. Before Dannion Brinkley died the first time, he was by his own admission not a good person. He was a bully, a Marine, and a man who did not believe in God nor in spirituality. And then in 1975, all of that changed when a bolt of lightning sent 180,000 volts through his body. His heart stopped, and for 28 minutes, he was clinically dead. During that time, he relived his entire life from the perspectives of the people he had hurt. And when he was brought back to life, he came back a changed man. To me, what's even more significant is what he's done since then. For more than 45 years, Dannion has been a devoted hospice volunteer, sitting at the bedside of over 2,000 people as they transitioned from this life, ensuring that no one has to die alone. He established the Brinkley Center Foundation to create a healing space for those navigating grief, trauma, and life's hardest transitions. And he spent 50 years doing the one thing his near-death experience told him to do, making sure people don't face death afraid and sharing the lessons he learned while he was dead. What he experienced on the other side of each of those deaths, what he saw, what he was shown, and what he was sent back to do is what we're here to talk about today. Please help me welcome Dannion Brinkley. Dannion Brinkley, it is so good to be with you.
It is an absolute pleasure to be with you. And Hal, thanks for taking up this podcast mantra and bringing this kind of programming to people to be able to make the right decisions. And like now, the critical time to make the right decisions.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely welcome. Thank you for the work that you're doing. You know, I was telling you before we started recording that you're the only other person I've met that has been clinically dead 3 times. And so but
you got to remember, you had it coming. I didn't.
That's funny. I hope people will understand your sarcasm and humor because I like to match it. So let's go. So Dannion, so I've when I heard about you, a mutual friend introduced us. I had not heard about you before. He said, "Have you heard of Dannion Brinkley? Struck by lightning multiple times, clinically dead multiple times," and I started going down the rabbit hole to watch interviews with you and read articles. And I haven't read your book yet, but just fascinated by how you took your adversity, and I just feel so aligned with this. And you're like, how can I help others with this? How can I help other people? How can I spread the message? And so I want to start with first, how old were you when you had your first, the first lightning strike?
25.
25. Okay. And I had read or heard you talk about that before you were struck by lightning and had your first near-death experience. You described yourself as not a great person. Is that accurate?
More than accurate.
Okay.
You're a tough guy.
You're a tough guy. All right, talk about who you were before. Who were you at 25 years old before the lightning struck?
Okay. I didn't believe any of this spiritual stuff. I thought it was rubbish. I thought religion was stupid. Okay. I grew up as a tough guy. You hit him in the face before you ask a question.
Okay.
Then I played sports, and then I was a street fighter. Then I discovered the Marine Corps, which was like a dream come true for a mean, narcissistic asshole.
Okay.
And then on a Wednesday afternoon on September 17th at 7:05 p.m., I was struck by lightning. Hit me in the side of the head, went down my spine, welded the nails of the heels of my shoes to the floor, throws me in the air, suspends me in the air, slams me down on the bed. I'm burning and I'm on fire, like battery acid burning. Whew. Now all of a sudden I lift out of my body. And from that moment on, I discovered that I was a spiritual being more than I was anything else. And I think what's really important about the story is what I call the panoramic life review. How you lift out of your body, everybody. And no matter what you think, what you're hearing is the truth. I'm telling people the truth. And people say, well, what does it feel like? Well, I left a body burning and on fire and paralyzed. It took me 2 years to learn to walk and feed myself.
Oh.
And I lifted out of my body. And wherever I was, I could see, I could move, and I wasn't burning and on fire. And I could see my body lying on the bed. Then there is nothing but peace. For all people wondered about what happens next, number one, here's what happens next. Nobody ever dies.
Mm.
The biggest, dumbest trick ever played on a spiritual being is to make them think they're going to die and to create a construct that traps them in a control mechanism on this side based on what's going to happen on the next side. So when I discovered that I was a spiritual being, all that stuff that I once was something I had to look at.
Mm.
But here's what will happen for everyone next, Hal. No matter what anybody thinks about, this is what will happen next. You will have a panoramic life review, the Hall of Records, the Great Book of Judgment, every what they call it.
Mm.
You will see your entire life pass before you in a 360-degree panorama. Then you will watch it from a second-person point of view as though you were your own best friend.
Mm.
That's the way the joy and love of the divine shows you. Because if it's your best friend, if you're all full of yourself, they're going to pat you on the shoulder and calm you down. And if you're all sad and depressed, they're going to pat you on the shoulder and uplift you.
Yeah.
So you see it from a second-person point of view. And then you literally become every person that you ever encounter. And you feel the direct results of your interaction between you and any other person. Nobody gets away with anything. Well, when I had to be all the people that I'd hit in the face, shot, beat up, knocked out, blew up, and I had to feel the direct results, what I realized was there was no way I could keep being that. And number two, what really matters is not what you do in this life, it's why you do it. So when I had a panoramic life review, Hal, there was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to go but to change. And so realizing that we're all spiritual beings and realizing that we were chosen to come here and we choose to come here becomes a significant perspective for everybody to give a chance to look at. Because when you stop long enough to look at what we think is reality as opposed to true reality, and you are a knower of what true reality is, then we have to change who we are. So there is a place in the panoramic life review, Hal, and I'll say it my way, that it does this. After you see your life and become every person, the question is this. If God couldn't come today, or whatever you hold to be divine could not come today, and it sent you, in the life you just reviewed, what difference did you and God make? That is the only question you will ever ask yourself. That is the only question you'll ever have to answer to the value of what you're doing here. I became a hospice volunteer.
Yes.
I built the largest end-of-life care volunteer program for dying veterans in American history. I co-wrote the standard end-of-life care model presently used by the VA, the Veterans Administration today. I've been with 2,017 people going from this world to the next.
Wow.
And after this show, I'm going to go see my 2018th veteran hospice, 10 years in the Army, junkie. Okay, so from going from 250 pounds to 116 pounds, 117 pounds. But everybody makes their choices in their life, Hal, and why they live and what they live and what value they place on their life. I'm not a judger of that or any of that. My job is to be there to be with you as you structure leaving this world.
Yeah.
I have 34,000 hours at the bedside in the VA system, and I have another 60,000 hours at the bedside. So if I say you're going to be everything that you're going to be everybody, and you're going to feel the direct results, and a panoramic life review and observing the reasons and what I did as a jerk, narcissistic, tough guy, blah, 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 and being a hospice volunteer, and then spending the last 48 years as a hospice volunteer, is the dramatic point I'm trying to make why people should listen to me and what my life went from being a Marine.
Yeah.
Now, instead of sending them there, I'm helping them cross.
About two of my favorite products. I've been taking these for 4 years, and they are now a sponsor of the podcast. Cured Nutrition, Flow Gummies. I start every day with 2 of these. I meditate for 30 minutes without any supplements, and then I take Flow Gummies 7 days a week, almost every day. And then I go to bed with night oil. 30 minutes before bed, I take night oil, and it helps me fall asleep and stay asleep. So I start my day with Flow Gummies. I end my day with night oil. If you want to implement my routine into your day with Cured Nutrition, go to curednutrition.com/Hal. Again, that's curednutrition.com/Hal, and use the discount code HAL at checkout for 20% off your entire order. Flow Gummies to start the day, night oil to fall asleep. You'll feel better. You'll act better. You'll perform better. Check it out. Wow, that's beautiful. This near-death experience, you had this life review and you realized...
that was a death experience.
That was a death experience.
The first was a dead for 28 minutes.
So it was 28 minutes that you had this full life review. It all kind of, that's what I wanted to ask you, is how long did it take? And I'd imagine, I mean, my understanding is that when you die, DMT is a molecule that's released in your brain, that when you do DMT, you experience something similar. And I watched an interview recently with a gentleman that did DMT for 5 hours, and he said it felt like 6 months. It was like 6 months of time went by and experiences he had in 5 hours. And so I'd imagine those 28 minutes, you had that full life review. And I'm understanding that
it came 50 years into the future.
50 years into the future. Explain that. What do you mean?
Well, what I'm famous for, other than being able to get up from the dead, is I wrote in Saved by the Light 30 years ago what was called the boxes of knowledge. The visions I received, I lifted out of my body, had a panoramic life review, and then that was over. And I went to these, what I call crystal cities. I came before this altar of 12 beings, with a 13th being to the right.
Wow.
And that 13th being would designate a being. That being would then begin to radiate when that was all I saw. And then it was like a message would come. Like I always say, it looked like a laptop. I didn't know what a laptop was then.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, well, it looked like a laptop opening up and I could see a scene in it. So I used to say, well, maybe I died and went to the Radio Shack. But now that's all gone. But I saw these visions of that what I now know to be the future. But then, Hal, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
Remember, you're talking about complete spiritual moron.
Yeah.
No point of reference in it. You know, I'm from South Carolina. Everybody goes to hell down in South Carolina. Okay.
Ouch, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the story. You're going to hell. And people have been telling me I was going to hell since I was 5 years old because of the personality type.
Yeah.
So what I had was a series of visions before these 12 beings. And I wrote them down in 1977. It took 2 years before I could write, walk, all that stuff. I mean, I could walk, but it wasn't far.
Yeah.
Pass out in the yard, break my nose, knock this pass, all that stuff. So I wrote them down. So when I wrote Saved by the Light, I took the exact words that I'd written down in 77 and I put them in the book. And when I put them in the book, you realize the fall of the Soviet Union, Chernobyl, Fukushima, the pandemic, all these things I wrote down in a book 33 years ago from nifty notebooks that I wrote down in 1977.
Wow.
So when I got with to the publisher said, we don't want to put the boxes of knowledge in the book. And here's what I said. I said, well, then I'm not going to publish the book. You can have your money back. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything this book will help everybody understand has nothing to do with me. I already been dead. Don't try to tell me. And I spent 48 years of my life at the bedside.
Yeah.
And I've been with thousands of people, not one or two or a dozen, thousands.
Yeah.
So don't try to tell me. And I told him, I said, well, let me tell you something. Because the one about Iran and nuke and submarines, okay, that was 20 years later when I wrote this book. And the Iran getting a submarine and the time frame I said it was going to get it based on me receiving that. It's not my prophecies.
Yeah.
It's not Nostradamus. It's what I saw. What I saw. And so when I said, well, I'm not going to do it. And they said, well, why? Raymond Moody and Paul Perry. And they said, well, why? I said, well, look, I said, think about this. If I put this in this book and this stuff comes true, that means there's a life after death. Because when I got this information, they were saying I was dead. Not near dead. Brought me in the emergency room. Patient unconscious, patient not breathing, no EKG. Now, that's the emergency room. So what do? You cover me with a sheet, you move me in a room, and you bring the next one in. Patient unconscious, patient not breathing, no EKG. What was that in 1975, Hal?
I don't know.
Done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, and if it doesn't come true, everything that you all believe that it's all hallucination or DMT or drug reaction or chemical biological shutdown.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I hallucinated and I owe people an apology. Well, here we are 50 years later and 32 years since the book. It's all come true.
Wow.
98% of it's true. What they said was the probable possibility of the future based on if we keep doing the same thing we've been doing. This is what's going to happen. We was in Vietnam. We were taking over the world. We were imperialist America. We fighting wars everywhere. Well, look at where we are right now. We're on the precipice of a world war. So we didn't change. And so what they showed me that would be the probable futures have come true based on the rules at which they were showing it to me. What is so great about divinity, Hal, is it's not playing with you. It has its rules. You chose and were chosen to live and function within them to achieve a certain biological, neurological, electrochemical, electromagnetic event or charge for the divine force, and then you choose to come because you can look and create obstacles that allow you to grow, allow you deeper understanding, like getting your PhD. And that's the purpose of this. When you come down that you're going to die, nobody dies. It doesn't ever happen. So the purpose of the near-death experience, as the divine decided to put it in place, was because doctors and chemistry and pharmaceutical companies, like you said, the only difference between God and a doctor is God never thinks he's a doctor. So what she always called God feminine, because at first it makes people mad.
Yeah.
And then second, because my relationship to the divine is a loving kind of playful kind of relationship.
Yeah.
You don't scare me.
Yeah.
You can't threaten me. Okay.
Amen.
So that's how my relationship is. So she's sitting around and she sees these doctors and pharmaceutical companies and all that. She says, look, I will send a bunch of them jackasses back. So how come I'm still here? Cardiopulmonary resuscitation techniques. All of those who's controlling your life, tell you there's nothing after this, and all you are is chemicals, and there's nothing. The mind is everything's in the brain, and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And then we come back, and we tell a different story.
Yeah, and it's consistent. I've studied near-death experiences, and the stories are consistent across the board.
The stories vary based on how you find the language to describe an impossible series of events in English that does not have a charge to it. Like most Romance languages have a female, negative or female gender, which is the charge, positive or negative charge. So what the purpose of the near-death experience was, in its 50th year, it's now in its golden year. So what was the cultural legacy of the near-death experience? Number one, you're not going to die. And there's something over there. Number two, 95% of every person who has a near-death experience sees they float above their body.
Mm.
They see their body on the bed, on the gurney, on the side of the wreck, on the car, all that. They see it. The purpose of that is if you're seeing your body, then tell me who the observer is.
Yeah.
Who is the observer?
The
That
real
means
you.
that means you are not that body.
Mm.
Okay, then number three, then what are you?
Mm.
You either got to be a solid, liquid, or a gas. Okay, so that can't be possible.
Mm.
Because there has to be four: north, south, east, and west, earth, wind, water, and fire. The nature of how a constructive reality comes into physical dimensional reality that we're living in. Then what is missing? In
Spirit.
1904, on the periodic table, there was something called ether.
Mm.
Was an element. They took it off in 1904, and they hid it and buried it until quantum came in and renamed it plasma. Now there are four forms of material: solid, liquid, gas, plasma, or ether.
Mm.
Okay, so if you're not that body, then who are you? You're ether. You're ethereal. Plasma. I don't like that term, but you're ethereal. Okay. Well, that means you're an electrical being.
Mm. Mm.
And that means you take the near-death experience and you explore yourself from an electrical point of view. And if you think of yourself from an electrical point of view, then you begin to truly understand who you are as a divine being on a mission, chosen and choose to come here and on this divine mission. Because once you look at it from that point, the reality of the subjective nature of control in place in the world today no longer is valued. Because people ask me, all the time, Daniel, why are you always so happy? Why are you always laughing? I said, well, one, I didn't die. I didn't go to hell. So they missed their chance at the kid. Okay, so why should, living from the South, why should I be happy? I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So my understanding is, Danny, this is all, I'm fascinated. I understand you've had one death experience that you just described, but then 3 near death experiences, right? It's happened more than once. What are these other 3 separate deaths or near deaths? And did they deliver the same message? What was different about them, or what was the same? And what
Okay,
were they? What happened?
okay, so 1975, struck by lightning. 1989, open heart surgery, complications of being struck by lightning.
Mm.
1997, brain surgery, complications of being struck by lightning.
Mm.
Never given a chance to survive. Never. 2018, open heart surgery. Clinically resuscitated after the open heart surgery. 4 days after the open heart surgery, went into cardiac arrest twice and had to be resuscitated.
Wow.
Okay, I don't even call the 2 being clinically resuscitated even important because I didn't go anywhere.
Mm.
I went flatlined, and I came out of my body, and I'm standing next to my body, watching them pound on my chest, trying to revive me, okay? But I was standing next to the charge nurse, looking down at me, watching the nurses working shifts and pounding on my chest. Okay, and I didn't go anywhere. The thing that amazed me, Hal, was you come out really fast,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
but when you go back in, it's like forever.
Hmm.
I mean, because you are putting on what I always say was cloaks. In order for a spiritual being to believe they're physical,
Hmm.
there must be some dimensional realities that they have to cloak that self in to appear to be physical. Quantum physics says today nothing is real.
Mm.
And how funny when people say, well, I'm physical, I'm material. Well, you say this to them. So, well, let me ask you something. The smallest known material thing is a neutrino, and neutrinos make up atoms.
Yeah.
And then atoms make up molecules, and molecules make up cells. So you got 35 billion cells in your body. And if you took all of those 35 billion cells and you put them under an electron microscope, or you do one at a time, that cell would be 99.999999%
Space.
empty space.
Empty space. Yeah.
So quantum physics states categorically, you're not here.
We're here as energy, not as a physical object. Yeah.
And the moment you start to observe the world from that point, you are accessing your own divine spiritual self. As long as you think you're physical, as long as you think you're going to go to hell and it's going to rip your flesh because Pope Leo X read Dante's Inferno and decided to make it doctrine so he could sell indulgences. That means you pay $3 and you get a letter from the Pope that says you ain't going to hell.
Yeah. I want to circle back and spend some real time on the life review that you talked about. You said you didn't just watch your life. From what you explained, you felt the impact of your actions on other people. And I wanted to know.
You became the other person.
So you felt, talk about feeling it. You're feeling it as they felt it.
It happen based on your intention.
And it sounds like before you went through the death experience, you were not an empathetic person. You were an a-hole. You were a jerk. You were a narcissist, as you mentioned. So did that experience give you a new level of empathy? And what else might have come out of that?
Taught me to know better. What are the rules of living here? What are the rules of occupying this physical dimension in the illusion of thinking you're a physical being? Okay, what is that illusion? We are not physical beings. Quantum physics today says and proves that you're not even here. And then people say, well, I'm still here. I said, well, the same system that makes your cell phone work says you're not here. Okay, yeah. So does your cell phone work? Answer be yes. Well, You're not here then.
Yeah.
So that dramatic change happened. When you face yourself and you see what your motivations were, it's embarrassing.
Now, what if you were a wonderful person? What would you imagine they would see?
They would feel the joy of the value they brought into life, like what grandmother does.
Yeah.
They would feel the happiness. Love thy neighbor as thyself, and do unto others as you would have others do unto you, pretending that you're a physical being able to be afraid, scared, helpless, and alone, and still holding to the true value of trusting in the divine force that is God. Okay, those are the rules. Religion portrays that. Corporate institutions and governments manipulate that. But it's all freaking nonsense. You're not going to die. And if I didn't go to hell, nobody listening to this broadcast is going to hell. So you don't have to get over it, because if anybody was going, it was going to be me.
What I love about you coming out of the experience is that you became not just a hospice volunteer, but a prolific hospice volunteer. My mother is a hospice volunteer. I'm not sure how many people she's sat with, but it's hundreds and hundreds over the last, 30 years or 40 years. And
tell her I love her. Tell her I said I love her.
Yeah, I will. You guys would actually love. I think you guys would love each other. She's got your similar energy and your spunk. So I'd love to ask you this. You've sat at the bedside of over 2,000 people as they died. What do most people? What's happening? What are they talking about? What are they fearing? What are they thinking? And what are you? I would imagine you're telling them what you're telling us.
Well, no. Maybe 1 out of 40. When you're at the bedside, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about me. It's about them. Okay. If somebody brings it up or asks about it, I'll talk about it. But I am not the initiator.
I love that.
You don't live in cosmology when a person's diehard fundamentalist Baptist is going from this world to the next, and the whole family's going crazy because they're leaving them, and they're fighting over the furniture and who's going to get the ring out of the closet first and all of that stuff. A person in transition needs 3 things. They need to know that their life had value. The fact that you're coming to see them represents that. If you know them close, you tell them a story that happened that they affected your life, good, bad, or indifferent. So it sets up a value for them to observe themselves. Never lie to them. They will know. Number 2, you must structure closure. How do you structure closure? No matter what condition they're in the bed, as horrible as it is, in all that enormous pain, you say, look, these are the rules of being here. Life is about progression. So you can't sit here and watch Jeopardy and take those, hit that pump and drugs. You got to make a freaking plan. And then how do you do that without saying that your closure? You start talking to them about what they did in their life as jobs, careers, thoughts, so that they start through the panoramic life review. Because when you start looking back at your life and the jobs and the stuff, and what would we do now if you were 35 with what you know and what job you had, then they move into the plane. This is the next structure, Hal, of what's going to happen. It don't matter whether you believe me or not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I will win this argument. Okay. And after facing myself now 3 times, and let me tell you about the panoramic life review. It doesn't pick up where you left off. It's only one life. Okay. So I have been through this 3 freaking times.
Yeah.
And I had hand surgery in between those 2, but it wasn't anything. I went knocked out, went under anesthesia, had the hand surgery, woke up, got over it. No near-death experience, nothing. Open heart surgery, struck by lightning, open heart surgery, brain surgery, open heart surgery. 1 death and 3 near-death experiences. And I don't even consider the resuscitations.
Yeah.
I didn't go anywhere. Here's what was funny though, Hal. There was a guy standing when I came back. I was back about 7 or 8 minutes. Then they lost me again. There's a guy standing behind the nurse to the left, kept saying, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" Okay. Well, I'm curious. I got a cardiologist yelling at me. Okay. It's Sunday morning at 2 a.m. Okay. They just resuscitated me for the first time. They're all standing around and I go again. Okay. I go again. Are you ready? Well, what people don't understand is that pad story, where they put the pads on your chest?
Yeah.
They don't do that now. They tape these things. They take these things to you.
Okay.
Okay. And this was the guy with the switch. When he kept saying, "Are you ready?" And I was thinking to myself, ready for what? This is true. Ready for what? And they stepped back.
Shocking.
And he hit that switch. I was back. But I came back no matter how fast I came back because it had to be in between heartbeats now. Okay? You're talking about a heartbeat. You had to be in between heartbeats. Okay? But it took 7 coats I had to put on to get back here.
Wow.
And it was slow. It wasn't coming out, but I came out fast both times. Going back in, it was like forever.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay. These are the things that are curious to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just sharing what's curious to me because I'm not going to die and I'm not going to hell and all that other stuff is complete, total nonsense.
So
and if you believe it in nonsense too. So you either live in reality as the world is changing or you don't.
So I want to challenge you a little bit for the person that, there's a version of someone listening to this or watching this who thinks you're either delusional or you're making it up. And I know that you've heard that, I'm sure, countless times. What do you say to that person? And do you even care about convincing them?
Well, why would I be telling this? Because everybody's going to be a freaking caregiver. Everybody, based on where medicine is and where life is and the war that's going on in healthcare, you're going to be a caregiver. And if you don't have sufficient information and knowledge to make the right decisions for somebody you love and somebody who loves you, then you can think whatever you want. But I can get up from the dead. with no chance to survive. I'm not like a poem. I've been saying the same things for 50 years. Just keeps coming true.
Yeah.
And so if somebody wants to measure whatever it is and form a delusional opinion about me, how many times you've been dead and how many people have you died with? Answer that question as a value of your life, and I'll answer that question as a value of my life.
Mm.
And what changed me was facing myself in a near-death experience, or I would have already hit you in the face. Think of who the other person was. You be telling me all that stuff and act like you got an opinion, but you'll be bleeding as you say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the person that I normally, and I grew up as being.
Yeah.
It didn't mean I didn't lose that talent.
Yeah.
It means it didn't benefit the divine purpose of what I'm doing here.
Mm.
I tell a story that I have no fear of. I will be right. And how? Look how many times I've been through this.
Yeah.
I didn't fall over on my bicycle. I didn't bump my head. I didn't overdose on a drug. There's a guy talking about DMT, said it describes like a near-death experience. In DMT, you see the fabric of the universe. If you do it for 5 hours, you only have an 8 or 9 minute duration on the dosage. You have to look at what the dosage is. You have to look at your serotonin levels, your endorphin levels, what your trace mineral instruction is, how much electrolytes in the body, and how hydrated that body is to determine exactly what he's describing as an end result of a chemical biological reaction in the brain.
Mm. Mm.
Nobody fools me with that BS, Hal. Don't fool me with that.
Yeah.
I understand biogenetic chemistry.
That's an
I
interesting
understand.
distinction. Yeah.
I understand a body. I understand how it works. I can make this one do things you cannot possibly imagine. I have 20% ejection fraction. I am actively dying.
Hmm.
Ask my cardiologist.
So what do you mean by that? You can make your body do things that are extraordinary, or however you said it. What do
I
you?
am actively dying.
Okay. Aren't we all actively dying, Dannion? We're all
Yeah,
dying.
I'm just doing it a little faster.
How old are you, by the way, now?
76.
76 years young. All right. How is your health,
No,
by the way? You mentioned you're not
76 years old.
old. Okay. All right. Why do you reframe it as old when I reframed it as young?
Well, because look, first, that's not true.
Yeah. All right. Fair.
Okay. And what I'm most known for, Al, is I'm honest.
Like that.
I don't have pretense to be. I know too much about me to be impressed, and I've already faced myself.
Mm.
I don't have all that. I tell people in a way because I've desperately tried to get across to them the need to do what I'm asking them to do, or they will be caught in a trap.
And what is it that you're asking them to do? What do you hope, as we're winding down here, what's the most important message that you want to leave someone with that they can apply to their life?
3 things. Number 1, you are not going to die.
Mm.
The whole concept in terms that are used to quantify you dying. Check and see who's telling you that, and ask her what their intention in telling you that. If they've never been there, they want you to have a belief system in something they have faith in.
Mm.
Okay. I don't have mine as a belief system. Number 2, the battle for the souls of humankind will be fought in healthcare. It's been the mantra of my life for 50 years. Because if you look at where healthcare is today, and you watch what happened with the pandemic, the control of the value of your life, what you will do to protect your children, your grandchildren, your grandparents. You cannot go see your mother pass from this world because some agency said you're going to kill her and she's in hospice. That is insanity.
Yeah, I agree.
That is complete and total insanity. So I get a little pushy
Huh.
because I am desperate to get people to understand. If you don't pay attention to your health care and look at yourself as an electrical being, so you have access to yourself as a spiritual being. And when you look at health care, I will make this prediction, Hal, that in the next 18 months, the pharmaceutical medical system will teach you that you are an electrical being.
Hmm.
But the pathway they're going to take you down and teach you to that is a trap in healthcare.
Mm.
And if you don't believe that you are an electrical being today, and you don't believe what I'm asking or telling you that I think is the smartest thing to do if you love somebody, go on when you get off this podcast. Tell them to get on their computer, please, and look up CRISPR. Just look up the word CRISPR.
CRISPER.
By PER, CRISPR.
Okay.
And see what is already patented and existing to modify, control, and manipulate your DNA as if you are a programmable being with an electrical nervous system called the nervous system and a DNA structure that can be programmed to change, build, modify. They're doing CRISPR now to build super soldiers. Look up CRISPR and tell me that that is not true. See, when people start with me, watch how much fun I have. I know nobody's going to die. It's nonsense.
Yeah. So you have no fear around that. It's a different paradigm.
I've been with 358 people taking their last breath. Their last breath. Don't try to tell me. I don't tell people, don't try to tell me all that. Listen to somebody who's been through it.
Yeah.
Listen to somebody who struggled through it, who understands it. Why am I telling you this? Because I'm scared of dying? I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to, like you got to go and if you don't listen to me, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
And all that. I'm not trying to do none of that. I'm trying to help you help those you love and who you care about. That's why I'm doing it. I'm happy in my life.
Yeah.
My health is terrible.
Now your health is terrible.
Sure.
But it doesn't affect your happiness.
No question. I'm going to see a hospice patient when I leave you.
Yeah.
Because it's Memorial Day. We made it back.
What does the future, what is you've done so much. Just sitting with thousands of people and in hospice, caring for them as they're going through that transition. Is the future you continuing that mission? Is there a mission outside of that, beyond that, in addition to that?
Dannion.com. Dannion.com. If people read my book, Saved by the Light, I wrote Secrets of the Light for Caregivers. If you're a caregiver and you're having trouble, go on Amazon and buy Secrets of the Light.
I'm going to buy that for my mom right now.
So, and you tell her, and I wrote this book so that people who are having to deal with it had to have a stable place to operate from because it's hard. Because a part of you's passing with somebody you love as you're trying to take care of them, and you can't trust or believe anything anybody's telling you, and everybody's up to something. And the person who's in transition, as you lose control, you try to take control. So the person that you hope is going to appreciate what you're doing ends up, you resent them because they're trying to manipulate and control you without realizing it's because they're losing control. So I write how you deal with this stuff in such a way to empower yourself. I call it the 7 truths. I have a thing called the 4-fold path. Okay. And then I have what's called 7 truths that any place in the world, and if you lock onto one of those 7 truths as a value of why you're doing what you're doing, the revelation and insight will come, or someone like me will appear, or they'll turn on the television or look on YouTube and find this podcast. Because that's the nature of the law of the love of the divine operating in this conscious level. So what I want to lead with people is this. The battle for the souls of humankind will be fought in healthcare. And if you don't pay attention to your healthcare, your plan, and taking better care of yourself, you will fall for the control trap being put and applied to helping you understand that you are an electrical being. We have moved in quantum dynamics to the point where you can no longer leave ether out of the table, out of the periodic table, because it's now called plasma. Plasma is based on quantum mechanics. So I might be delusional. I might be a lot of stuff. That means your cell phone is not working.
Yeah. No, quantum physics has been it's the one of the most cutting edge sciences, and it has proved. In fact,
string theory, chaos theory. Come
I
on.
believe the Nobel Prize, the
What a
most recent
waste.
Nobel Prize winner, proved that the universe is not real, that it is closer to a simulation. This was just weeks ago that I can't remember his name, but I was reading the article about the latest Nobel Prize winner. So there's a lot more, Dannion, to me, I'm a very open-minded person. I rarely hear something and immediately dismiss it. When I was younger, I was very skeptical, and I immediately, and I'm sure many people listen, and they might have already turned off the podcast. They go, "Oh, this guy's talking crazy. You don't ever die," and this and that. To me, it's so, I don't know if it's arrogant is the right word, but almost naive to think that we know anything, right? Like we more and more and more as time goes on, as scientific discoveries, it proves that we don't know a lot more than we think that we know. We don't understand the universe and how energy works and all of how gravity works. We can put a word to it and give it a descriptor, but we don't actually understand it. And you having
what is gravity?
Yeah.
What is gravity? What happens if you take a bowling ball and a BB and you drop it off the Empire State Building? Based on gravity, which one would hit first? They hit at the same time. They fall at 32 feet per second.
Wow.
They hit at the same time. So what happened to the definition of gravity as you're told what it does? Water will find the most level position. So if you're spinning around 1,000 miles an hour, 24 hours a day, and moving through a cycle 66,000 miles an hour, 66,000 miles an hour, and the water, based on what we call physical, is not moving outward from the planet based on a gravitational field it has in relationship to 9 other planets and their gravitational field to keep them balanced in place to revolve around the sun. That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. So here's what I say to people who think I'm crazy. Thank you. And here's what I say to those people too. Don't just take everything that Hal's trying to blame and put it off on my crazy self. Don't not listen and come back to Hal because he's trying to get the information out, because he realizes that the world is bigger and broader because he's been without breath. Every time you breathe and when you don't breathe is the difference in the vibratory harmonic between that level of consciousness and this one. Divine power flows. When you breathe in, it fills your sinus cavities. It stops. You are divinely connected through the sinus cavities, holding that air, and then you set an intention and you breathe out. So you're divinely connected to God in between each breath. Before you can breathe out, you have to stop and then breathe out. When you understand that as a value concept of who you are, you could use that. You say you want to be close to God, hold your breath a few moments. Because I say to people, you're really funny. Why? Because how long can you live without God? Ever how long you can hold your breath. And if you can hold your breath long enough, you will be in her presence pretty soon. So when you realize that from not breathing, you realize at that moment that you stop and you're not breathing, you are connected to the system again. You're reconnected to the divine flow again. And the value of that space, filling that divine place, is where you and the divine decide why you're going to take the action you're taking. That's a fact, Hal. And I have watched and studied this in the value of thousands of people leaving this world and 358 taking their last breath. So I always say to people, watch. The nature of who I am came from being dead and fighting to stay alive and finding values of what people struggle with, the lies they believe in equal to whoever thinks I don't know what I'm talking about. And then the value comes down when you get ready to go, and this is my solemn place. Evil has its greatest opportunity in palliative care. When a person is passing from this world, evil can destroy families. It can destroy love and the relationship that nurtures and builds. families, and people never speak to each other again over who was fighting over and arguing. So I am fighting evil from the bottom of my heart by creating ways that people can understand how to look at something they're terrified of. How in the world can you be afraid of going to be home with your daddy for the rest of your life? That doesn't impress me. I'd rather God be a woman, and she'll be fun and laughing and planting and yelling, knocking things up. I'm sorry I'm like I am, Ham.
No, I don't apologize at all. I appreciate who you are. And Dannion, in fact, as we close out, I want to just thank you for who you are. I want to thank you for taking your adversity and turning it into service for other people. I want to thank you for sitting with thousands of people dying and taking their last breaths and crossing over. And again, as somebody that, has personally had a few near-death experiences myself, my mother sits with hospice. Like I feel a lot of love and appreciation for you. So thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do, and keep on doing it, brother.
And please, everybody, you keep on doing what you're doing now, because I think what you're doing is very important. And I think why and the nature of you only adds to that. The nature and why you're doing this. You are me. I'm just more boisterous about it because I don't care.
When I'm your age, I'll probably be the exact same, Dannion.
I support that today. That means you'll be old. You won't be young.
There you go. Well,
and I want everybody in your audience to know that I love them and appreciate them because I am them and they are me.
I feel the exact same way. We are all one, brother. Amen to that. The books, y'all go check out Dannion's books on Amazon. They're both rated 4.6 out of 5 stars. Saved by the Light, Secrets of the Light, and check out his website, Dannion, DANNION.com. I love y'all, and I'll talk to you next week.